She kept her head down, kept folding the sheets, but her hands had stopped shaking. Behind the service door, two voices. She recognized them both. Roman Kasalov sat 3 rooms away, drinking Macallan like the world owed him patience. He didn't know. But the maid who folded his sheets? She did. She kept her head down, kept folding the sheets, but her hands had stopped shaking. That's where we're going. But first, rewind. Every night at 9 o'clock, Nora Ashby pushed a cleaning cart down the east corridor of a $22 million lakefront mansion on Lakeshore Drive. The cart had a wobbly left wheel. Nobody had fixed it in 7 months. Nobody was going to fix it either, because nobody noticed the cart and nobody noticed Nora, and that was the whole point of her existence in this house. She was furniture. Less than furniture, actually. Roman Kasalov's furniture was Italian leather and hand-rubbed mahogany. Nora was polyester and scuffed white non-slip sneakers and a brass namepin that read Nora on the left chest of a dove-gray uniform tunic that was slightly too tight across her hips, slightly too tight across her bust, slightly too tight everywhere because that's what happens when the world doesn't bother to make space for a woman who takes up space. Size 20, 230 pounds, 5'6" with honey blonde hair pulled into a low, messy bun, wispy pieces framing a face with gray-blue eyes that nobody in this house had ever looked into. Not once. Full, soft curves, heavy thighs, thick waist, broad hips. A body she'd learned to make smaller in doorways, against walls, behind carts. A body she folded inward like the sheets she carried. Rounded shoulders, chin down, hands always busy, always folding, wiping, adjusting. A woman trained by the world to be invisible. And the thing about invisible? It worked. Here's what invisible cost her. A forensic accounting degree from DePaul University, 3.5 years of coursework, a GPA of 3.94, $87,000 in student debt that grew like a tumor, compounding monthly, relentless. She'd applied to 114 positions after graduation. 114. Sent out resumes that made hiring managers schedule phone screens on the spot. Her voice was sharp, her answers precise, her case studies immaculate. Then came the in-person interviews, and every single time, the hiring manager's gaze did the same thing. Started at her face, dropped, traveled down, paused at her waist, her hips, her thighs in the too tight interview slacks she couldn't afford to replace. Then the smile changed, became polite, became final. 0 callbacks after in-person interviews, not one. So she took the housekeeping job through a luxury staffing agency, $14.50 an hour, $2,300 a month before taxes, $600 of which went straight to the minimum payment on her loans, which didn't even cover the interest. She cleaned bathrooms in houses worth more than she'd earn in 10 lifetimes, and she kept her mouth shut, and she pressed herself against walls when the people who owned those bathrooms walked by. The Kasalov estate was her primary assignment, 7 months and counting. She'd never spoken directly to Roman Kasalov, not a word. She had seen him exactly 11 times, always at a distance, always briefly. A tall figure in a charcoal Tom Ford 3-piece, military straight spine, dark chestnut hair swept back without a strand displaced, pale gray eyes that looked almost silver when the hallway sconces caught them. A Patek Philippe Nautilus glinting on his left wrist, hands clasped behind his back, deliberate, minimal, a man who never fidgeted. Each of those 11 times, Nora had done exactly the same thing. Pressed herself against the wall, made herself smaller, let him pass. He never looked at her. Why would he? The rest of the staff didn't look at her either, but they had different reasons. The 3 other maids on the night rotation kept to their sections, heads down, earning their own $14.50. They weren't cruel. They just weren't anything. The house manager, though, the house manager was something. Mrs. Adler. Brittle. Thin-lipped. The kind of woman who arranged her authority like a loaded plate she never intended to share. And on a Tuesday in late October, at approximately 8:40 p.m. in the service corridor outside the kitchen, Mrs. Adler decided to make an example. 3 other maids stood there. Nora had just signed in, cart ready, uniform buttoned to the collar with the thin chain of her brass skeleton key barely visible beneath the white piping at her neckline. Mrs. Adler looked at her the way a person looks at a stain they've been meaning to treat. "The uniform supplier called again about your order," Mrs. Adler said, loud enough for the corridor to hold every syllable. "They charge extra for your size. Did you know that? An upcharge, for the extra fabric." She paused. Let it land. "The wide load surcharge, I suppose." The other maids looked away. Every single one of them looked away. Nora's face burned. Her rounded cheeks flushed deep pink beneath the light scatter of freckles across the bridge of her nose and onto both cheekbones. She said nothing. Her hands found the edge of the cart, gripped. Mrs. Adler wasn't done. Of course she wasn't done. "And Nora, the pastries, the ones left over from Mr. Kasilov's meetings. Stop eating them. I've seen the trays. Nobody wants to see that." A thin smile, the kind that uses dimples as weapons. "It's not helping." Nora stood there and took it, stood there with her chin down and her shoulders rounded inward and her gray-blue eyes fixed on the tile floor, and she took it, because that's what invisible does. Invisible absorbs, invisible swallows, invisible survives. She cleaned Roman's study that night the way she always did, methodical, thorough. The mahogany credenza first, then the leather-topped desk, then the bookshelves, dense with volumes nobody on the staff had ever seen him read, but which were never dusty because Nora didn't allow dust. She was good at her job. She was good at every job she'd ever had. That was the cruelest part. Then the voices came through the service door. 2 men. One she recognized as Dmitri, Roman's own lieutenant, a thick-necked presence she'd seen at the estate a dozen times. The other was different, smoother, a voice like polished leather over something rotten. Victor Hale. She knew the name only because she'd seen it on a guest log 3 weeks prior. She knew the voice because she'd heard him laugh once in the foyer, a sound that made her skin crawl without understanding why. They were discussing a route, Roman's Thursday night route to the Drake Hotel, a replacement driver, a window. 4 minutes, Dmitri said. 4 minutes is enough, Victor answered. The word they used was clean. They said it 3 times. Clean. 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 Nora's hands stopped on the sheets she was folding. Her breath caught somewhere between her ribs and her throat and stayed there, trapped, while the rest of her went absolutely still. Then, deliberately, quietly, Victor Hale's voice on the other side of the door said the words, "Thursday at the Drake." And Nora's hands resumed folding, but her mind was already moving, rearranging the pieces. Nora rides the Red Line home at 11:30 p.m., her phone screen glowing with the notes she's typing. Names, times, the phrase "clean" circled 3 times. The train rattles south through the dark, half-empty, smelling like wet metal and old coffee. Her dove-gray polyester uniform is damp under the arms. Her scuffed white non-slip sneakers are planted flat on the grimy floor. The brass namepin reading Nora catches the fluorescent light every time the car sways, and her thumbs move fast, faster than anyone watching would expect from a woman who spent the last 9 hours scrubbing marble and folding Egyptian cotton into hospital corners. She's building a timeline. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, 72 hours. That's what she has. And here's the thing that would gut most people. She can't just tell someone. She can't walk up to Roman Kasilov's security detail and say, "Hey, your boss's trusted advisor is swapping out his driver for Thursday's dinner," and that word clean wasn't about housekeeping. She's a maid. She has no name in that building, no credibility, no access. Victor Hale is Roman's own guy, his advisor, his confidant, his smooth-talking right hand with the gold signet ring and the predatory dimples. If Nora opens her mouth, one of 2 things happens. She gets fired on the spot, escorted out through the service entrance like trash. Or worse, much worse. Because men like Victor Hale don't leave loose ends breathing. She knows this. She knows it the way she knows how to strip and remake a king bed in under 90 seconds. The way she knows every room number, every lock code, every shift rotation by heart. Nora Ashby is nobody, and nobody is exactly who she needs to be right now. So she doesn't warn. She repositions. Tuesday morning. The kitchen schedule is posted on the corkboard behind the staff break room, and Nora reads it the way she reads everything. Completely, photographic, gone in 4 seconds. Roman Kasalov's Thursday dinner is confirmed for the Drake's private dining room on the 7th floor. 8 p.m. 6 guests, 3 courses, wine pairings pre-selected. She memorizes the room number, the time, the head chef assigned. Then she moves on to the staff hallway near the motor court entrance, where the driver rotation sheet hangs in a plastic sleeve on the wall. Her gray-blue eyes scan it once. There it is. Gregor, Roman's regular driver, the one who's been with him for 3 years, the one who knows the routes and the protocols and the panic switches, has been moved to off-duty for Thursday, replaced by a name she doesn't recognize, an outside contractor, authorized by V. Hale. Nora pulls out her phone, angles it like she's checking a text, snaps the photo, slides the phone back into her tunic pocket. The whole thing takes 6 seconds. She's already reaching for her cleaning cart, already pushing it toward the elevator, already invisible again. Wednesday is where it gets surgical. She has cleaning access to Roman's private study. She's had it for 4 months. Every night between 9 and 10 p.m., she vacuums the Persian rug, wipes down the walnut desk, empties the single crystal tumbler he leaves beside the Macallan bottle. She knows this room the way a surgeon knows an operating theater. Every object, every angle, every surface. The Thursday itinerary folder sits in the desk's left-hand drawer. It always does. Roman keeps his week's schedule there, printed on heavy cream stock, updated by his assistant every Monday. Nora opens the drawer with gloved hands. She lifts the folder. She places it open in the center of the desk, the altered driver assignment page facing up. Then she takes Roman's personal phone charger, the braided black cable he plugs in every single morning at that desk, every single time, without fail, and she lays it directly on top of the open folder. He'll have to move the page to charge his phone. He'll have to touch it. He'll have to see it. It's not a warning. It's a breadcrumb placed with the precision of a chess grandmaster who happens to smell like industrial bleach. Then she steps into the hallway. The security roster clipboard hangs on the wall in a slim black frame, the kind with magnetic name strips that slot into rows. On duty, off duty, on call. Gregor's name strip sits in the off-duty column, right where Victor moved it. Nora reaches up with a microfiber cloth in her left hand, dusting the frame to anyone watching, and with her right hand, she slides Gregor's magnetic strip from off-duty to on-call. 4 seconds. A swap so small, so silent, so mundane that the security camera would show nothing but a maid wiping dust from a clipboard frame. 4 seconds. And the whole game changes. Wednesday night, she's carrying a stack of fresh white towels through the main hall. The nice hall, the one with the marble floors and the crystal sconces, and the oil paintings that cost more than her apartment building. She shouldn't be here. Staff is supposed to use the service corridors. But the service elevator is broken again and she's running behind, and the towels need to reach the 7th floor before the night manager marks her late. Victor Hale rounds the corner. He's got a glass of something amber in his hand. His sandy blonde hair is gelled flat. His pale, watery eyes land on her, and his thin lips curl into that smile, the one with the deep dimples that don't reach anything warm. Jesus, they really let anybody waddle through the front rooms now. He says it loud enough for the concierge to hear, loud enough for the bellman by the elevator to turn his head. Victor takes a sip, then calls down the hall to Mrs. Adler. "Keep the big girl in the service corridors, would you? We have a reputation to maintain." A man who crowds into people's space to make himself feel tall. Nora's rounded cheeks flush hot. The freckles across her nose disappear under the red. Her fingers tighten on the towels. "Yes, sir," she says. Quiet. Steady. Her face is burning. Her mind is a frozen lake, still and deep and lethal underneath. She takes the service stairs. All 7 flights. 230 pounds and 40 pounds of towels, and she doesn't stop once, because Thursday morning is coming. Roman Kasalov walks into his study Thursday morning and finds a single sheet of paper on his desk with a rerouted schedule, and for the first time in months, he asks his head of security, "Who cleaned this room last night?" Roman Kasalov stands at his desk holding the altered itinerary, his pale gray eyes narrowed to slits, and asks his head of security to bring him the maid who cleaned the study. That's it. That's the sentence that changes everything. Not a gunshot, not a betrayal revealed at knife point, a question about housekeeping. 14 minutes later, two men in dark suits find Nora Ashby on the 9th floor of the Drake, halfway through turning down a bed in suite 914. She's got a fitted sheet stretched between her hands, her honey blonde hair pulled into that low, messy bun, with the wispy pieces falling around her flushed, rounded cheeks. And she's thinking about whether she remembered to restock the minibar in 912 when the door opens and a man she's never spoken to says her name like it's a summons. They walk her down. Nobody tells her why. Nobody tells her anything. She passes two other housekeepers in the service corridor and catches the look. That wide-eyed, thank God it's not me look, and her stomach drops through the floor. The brass namepin on her left chest catches the fluorescent light. Nora. Like a tag on evidence. She expects to be fired. She expects to be accused of snooping. She expects Victor Hale to be standing there with that predatory, dimpled smile, his chin elevated, his gold pinky ring catching light, while he explains that the fat maid went through private documents, and isn't that just grounds for immediate termination? She expects all of it. She has already rehearsed the walk to the employee exit. She knows which bus runs at this hour. But when the study door opens, Victor Hale is not there. Roman Kasalov is. He's standing behind his desk, not sitting, standing. And the difference matters because Roman Kasalov does not stand for people. He sits, he waits, he lets you come to him. But right now he is on his feet, one hand resting flat on the rerouted itinerary she left, his Patek Philippe catching a sliver of morning light from the window behind him. The charcoal Tom Ford suit is immaculate. The mother-of-pearl buttons on his white shirt glow faintly. He is still. Completely, terrifyingly still. The way a man is still when he's already decided someone is going to die and he's just working out who. He looks at her. Really looks. For the first time. Her full, soft figure filling the shapeless dove-gray uniform, the polyester tunic pulling slightly across her generous bust, the elastic waist trousers a size too tight around her heavy thighs and broad hips, the white cotton undershirt visible at the neckline, the scuffed white non-slip sneakers, the freckles scattered across the bridge of her small, rounded nose and onto both cheekbones, the gray-blue eyes that won't quite meet his, wide set beneath softly arched brows, fixed somewhere around his collar instead of his face. He sees her hands. They are not shaking. That's the detail that stops him. Everyone shakes in front of Roman Kasalov. His own lieutenants develop a tremor when summoned to this room. But this woman, this maid who folds his sheets and empties his wastebasket, has her hands clasped loosely in front of her, and her fingers are steady. He asks one question. "Why did you move the folder?" Nora's voice comes out quiet, almost a stammer on the first word, a slight hitch that she swallows past. But what follows is not a stammer. What follows is something else entirely. She explains what she overheard. The voices through the shared wall between the linen closet and the study, Tuesday night, approximately 9:47 p.m. Victor Hale and a man she later identified from the staff directory as Dmitry Volkov. The word clean. Not cleaning, clean. The driver swap on Thursday's motorcade route. The 4-minute window between the covered entrance at the Drake and the Wacker Drive merge where the secondary vehicle peels off. She doesn't dramatize. She doesn't cry. She doesn't plead. She recites it like a ledger entry, precise, dated, time-stamped, cross-referenced against the original itinerary she'd seen on his desk 3 days earlier. She tells him she noticed the discrepancy because the original route had 13 checkpoints and the new one had 12, and the missing checkpoint was the one with the longest exposure window to an elevated sightline from the parking structure on East Lake Shore. Roman listens without moving. Not a finger, Not a breath that she can see. Those pale gray eyes, almost silver in the morning light, fixed on her face with an intensity that should make her flinch. She doesn't flinch. Then he asks, "Why didn't you come to me?" And Nora, for the first time, looks directly at him, right into those pale eyes. Gray-blue meeting silver-gray across 6 feet of Persian rug and polished mahogany, and the faint birthmark on the left side of her neck, just below her ear, pulses with the heartbeat she's keeping so carefully controlled. "Because Victor Hale is your advisor. Dmitri is your lieutenant. I'm the maid who folds your sheets." Her voice is steady now, no stammer. Something harder underneath it, something that has been compressed for years under shapeless uniforms and lowered eyes and being invisible. "Who would you have believed?" The silence lasts 6 full seconds. Count them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The only sound is the faint tick of the Patek Philippe on his wrist. Roman's jaw tightens. The muscles along his square jawline cord beneath the clean-shaven skin. He knows she's right. He knows it with the kind of certainty that makes a man want to break something, because the answer is ugly and true. He would have believed Victor. He would have dismissed her. He would have let the man with the gold signet ring and the Brioni suit and the performance of authority override a housekeeper in scuffed sneakers, and he would be dead on Thursday. So Roman does something he almost never does. He sits down across from her. Not behind the desk. He pulls a chair to face hers. Close. Close enough that she can smell his cologne, Tom Ford Oud Wood, warm and dark, layered over the peat smoke sweetness of Macallan on his breath. Close enough that she can see the small cluster of 3 faint freckles below his right eye near the cheekbone, a detail so human on that angular predator's face that it makes her chest ache. He studies her. The full cheeks, the soft jawline, the gray-blue eyes that are holding his now without wavering. "You didn't run," he says. "You didn't warn me. You repositioned everything so I'd find the threat myself and act on my own authority. That's not loyalty." A pause, the thinnest edge of something dangerous in his voice. "That's strategy." Nora says nothing. Her hands are clasped in her lap, knuckles white. The brass skeleton key on its thin chain has slipped free of her collar, resting against the white cotton undershirt, catching light. Nora sits across from Roman Kassilov for the first time, not as a maid, but as the woman who just dismantled a kill plot with a phone charger and a magnetic name card, and he says 4 words. "What else do you see?" "What else do you see?" Roman asks, and Nora, still in her gray uniform, still smelling like industrial detergent, begins to dismantle his entire financial operation with her mouth. She hesitates first. Of course she does. 7 years of being told to keep her head down, keep her hands busy, keep her opinions folded up like hotel towels and tucked out of sight. Her fingers find the brass skeleton key on the thin chain at her collar, and she rolls it once between her thumb and forefinger. A nervous habit, a grounding ritual. Then she lets go, and she starts talking. 7 months of cleaning Roman Kassilov's study, 7 months of emptying his wastebaskets, straightening his desk, dusting the shelves behind his chair. 7 months of seeing documents left open, ledgers with their spines cracked, shipping manifests crumpled and tossed toward the bin, but landing on the carpet where she'd kneel to pick them up. She has a forensic accounting degree from DePaul University that cost her $87,000 in student loans she's still paying off on a housekeeper's salary. She graduated summa cum laude. Nobody cared. Nobody asked. She cleaned rooms and she read everything in them, because that's what her brain does. It reads systems the way other people read novels. She tells him his port logistics operation running through Gary, Indiana, is hemorrhaging $340,000 a month through duplicate invoicing. 2 vendors with different names, but the same tax ID, both billing for the same container loads, and nobody on his team caught it because the invoices are staggered 11 days apart. Just enough gap to look like separate shipments. She tells him his real estate shell company on Michigan Avenue, the one layered through 3 LLCs registered in Delaware, has a title transfer discrepancy on a property at 875 North that would get flagged in a standard IRS audit. The transfer date doesn't match the county recorder's timestamp by 6 days, and that 6-day gap falls exactly during a period when a different entity held the deed. It's sloppy, it's fixable, but right now it's a thread, and if someone pulls it, the whole structure unravels. She tells him his casino revenue from the lakeshore location is being skimmed, not by enemies, not by rivals, by his own accountant, a man named Petrov, who's been rounding down on every single cash deposit by $2,200. Every deposit. For 14 months. That's roughly $420,000 that walked out the door in someone's pocket. And nobody noticed, because the rounding looks like standard bank processing variance on paper. 3 vulnerabilities. 3 bleeding arteries in his empire. His own financial team missed every single one of them for 18 months. Nora identified all 3 in 7 minutes. Roman's expression doesn't change. Not the set of his jaw, not the line of his thin lips, not the angle of those pale gray eyes, silver almost in the lamplight. But his hands go still. They'd been resting on his knees and now they stop. Completely. No micro-adjustments, no shift of fingers. The heavy Patek Philippe Nautilus catches light on his left wrist, and he is a statue carved from something cold and precise. That stillness is more terrifying than any shout. He asks, "How long have you known this?" She says, "Since my 3rd week." He asks, "Why didn't you use it? You could have sold this to the FBI. You could have blackmailed me." And Nora looks at him. Really looks at him, maybe for the first time since she sat down. Her gray-blue eyes steady beneath those softly arched brows, the light scatter of freckles across her nose and cheekbones somehow making her look younger than 27 and older than anyone in his organization. "I'm a maid, Mr. Kasalov," she says. Nobody asks what the maid thinks. The line lands like a blade laid flat on a table. Roman's pale gray eyes hold hers. 1 second, 2, 3. Long enough that the silence takes on weight, takes on gravity, becomes its own kind of conversation. The small cluster of 3 faint freckles below his right eye catches the warm light, and for that stretch of seconds, he is not the head of anything. He is a man recalibrating everything he thought he understood about the woman sitting across from him in a too-tight polyester uniform with a brass namepin that reads, Nora. He picks up the phone on his desk. 1 call, short. He says 3 words in Ukrainian and hangs up. 12 minutes later, dinner arrives. Not a sandwich, not leftovers. A full spread carried in on a service cart by a man in a black vest who sets it on the desk without a word and disappears. Steak, a thick-cut ribeye, medium, still sizzling. Roasted vegetables glistening with olive oil and flaked sea salt. A basket of warm bread with butter, a bottle of red wine, already breathing. Nora sits frozen. Here's the thing you need to understand. She has been conditioned. Not just by Mrs. Adler, who told her she took up too much space. Not just by Victor Hale, who called her Miss Piggy in front of an entire banquet staff. By every job before this. Every break room where she ate alone. Every lunch she skipped because someone might see her chewing. Every time she made herself smaller around food so that people who already thought she was too big wouldn't have one more reason to look at her with that particular kind of disgust. So she sits frozen, her hands in her lap, the smell of that steak filling the room, and her stomach tight with hunger and something worse than hunger, shame. Roman watches her hesitate. He doesn't cajole. He doesn't smile. He says quietly and without softness, "Eat." She reaches for the bread. Her fingers close around a warm piece. Then she stops. Her hand pulls back an inch, the way it always does. Automatic. Trained. "You will not apologize for being hungry in my house." 8 words, delivered like a fact of architecture, like gravity. Not gentle, not tender, just absolute. She eats, slowly at first, then with the kind of honest appetite that comes from being genuinely starving and finally being told that's allowed. The bread is warm, the butter melts against it. She reaches for the steak. Roman watches her eat, and there is no judgment in those pale gray eyes, only a focused attention that makes the warm flush spread across her rounded cheeks, down her neck, past the faint thumbprint birthmark below her left ear. He sees her. That's the thing. He just sees her. Roman stands, removes his suit jacket, and drapes it over Nora's shoulders, the Tom Ford charcoal wool settling over her gray polyester uniform, and says, "You don't clean rooms anymore. You sit in them." The jacket is warm from his body. It smells like oud wood and smoke. It engulfs her, the broad shoulders falling past her own, the hem reaching her thighs where they press soft and heavy against the chair. For the first time, Nora's eyes are wet. The next morning, a black Rolls-Royce Cullinan pulls up to Nora's studio apartment in Rogers Park. $1,100 a month, water stain on the ceiling, a forensic accounting textbook still open on the kitchen table, and the driver hands her a garment bag. She stands in the doorway in a faded t-shirt and cotton shorts, bare feet on cold linoleum, and takes the bag like it might detonate. The driver, a broad man with no expression and a holstered weapon barely concealed under his jacket, hands her a shoebox next, then a small cream envelope. Then he returns to the Cullinan without a single word and waits. She closes the door. The garment bag is heavier than she expects. She lays it across the kitchen table, right on top of the forensic accounting textbook, and unzips it slowly. Inside, a charcoal blazer, beautifully structured, with a subtle herringbone weave she can feel under her fingertips. Matching wide-leg trousers. A cream silk blouse so soft it barely registers as fabric. She pulls each piece out and holds it up, and her brain does something it hasn't done in years. It stops calculating what won't fit, because she can see it already. The proportions, the cut through the waist, the generous drape through the hips. These clothes were made for a body shaped exactly like hers. Size 20, 230 pounds. Every seam, every dart, every single stitch, built for her. The shoebox holds black leather heels with a low, stable block heel, elegant without being cruel. Her size, her width. The cream envelope holds a card in handwriting she's never seen, but somehow already recognizes. Spare, angular, no wasted strokes. The Drake. 8 p.m. Bring the ledger numbers. That's it. No signature, no please. Roman Kasseloff does not ask. She stands there in her kitchen with the blazer pressed against her chest and the water stains spreading on the ceiling above her, and she realizes something that lands like a fist. He had her measurements taken from her uniform, the gray polyester housekeeping uniform she wore every day at the Drake, the tunic with white piping at the collar, the elastic waist trousers that were always slightly too tight. Someone measured those garments. Someone calculated her body from the shape she left in cheap fabric, and then someone built these clothes around that shape like architecture around a cathedral. The precision unnerves her. The fit makes her cry. She stands in front of the bathroom mirror, the only mirror in the apartment, spotted and small, and she looks at herself in a blazer that follows the curve of her waist without squeezing, trousers that fall clean over her heavy thighs, a silk blouse that drapes across her generous bust like water over stone. The brass skeleton key on its thin chain catches the light at her collar. Her honey blonde hair is still in its low, messy bun, wispy pieces framing the soft round of her face, the freckles scattered across her nose and cheekbones. Her gray-blue eyes are wet. She has never owned clothes that were made for her body instead of apologizing for it. She wipes her face. She picks up her laptop bag, stuffs her notes inside, and walks out to the Cullinan. The Drake Hotel. $4,200 a night penthouse suite converted into an operations center. When Nora walks through the double doors at exactly 8 o'clock, the room is already full. 8 men seated around a long mahogany conference table, laptops open, crystal tumblers of amber liquid at their elbows. And 1 woman. Irina Malik sits at Roman's right hand, jet black hair pinned straight and perfect, dark brown eyes slightly narrowed, always calculating, the beauty mark near the outer corner of her left eye. Slim, angular, immaculate in a fitted black Dolce & Gabbana blazer over white silk. Her pointed Louboutin stilettos are crossed at the ankle beneath the table. A slim black Mont Blanc pen rests between her fingers. When Nora walks in, the room shifts, not toward respect, toward assessment. 8 men and Irina Malik look at the plus-size woman in the tailored charcoal blazer, and they see a maid. Doesn't matter what she's wearing. Their eyes find the softness first, the full cheeks, the thick waist, the broad hips. The Mont Blanc pen begins to tap. Roman stands at the head of the table. Charcoal Tom Ford 3-piece, crisp white shirt, top button undone. The Patek Philippe Nautilus catches light on his left wrist. His pale gray eyes move to Nora and stay there for exactly 1 second longer than professional. Then he speaks. My new financial strategist. No last name, no background, no introduction beyond function. He tells them she has identified $4.2 million in internal losses across their hospitality and logistics operations, exposed in 72 hours what their existing team missed in 18 months. The room goes dead silent. Then the questions start. One of the men, heavy-set, silver-haired, expensive watch, leans back and says, "She the help?" Like it's funny, like it's an honest question. Another one, younger, sharp suit, says the numbers can't be right because their real analysts already audited those books twice. He emphasizes the word real like it's doing him a personal favor. Nora stands at the head of the table. Her hands shake for the first 3 seconds. Her voice comes out thin, reedy, too quiet for the room. She opens the first ledger file on the projector screen and points to a line item, a repeating ghost charge of $11,400 routed through a cleaning supply vendor that doesn't exist. She explains the routing. She explains the timestamp pattern. She explains how the charge was buried inside a legitimate bulk order so it would pass a standard audit filter. By the second ledger page, her voice has found its footing. By the third, it's steel, cold, precise, absolute. She walks them through 17 fraudulent entries across 4 months, line by line, timestamp by timestamp, dollar by dollar, and the silver-haired man stops leaning back. The young one with the sharp suit closes his laptop. The room is listening now, actually listening. Victor Hale is not in the room. Roman has not yet moved against him. This is deliberate. Nora is being tested first, and she is passing. Afterward, in the hallway outside the conference room, Irina Malik finds her. She moves like smoke, silent, angled, one hand on her hip, the Mont Blanc pen held against her thigh. Her dark brown eyes track Nora from the black leather heels up through the charcoal trousers, the cream silk blouse, the soft round of her flushed cheeks. Her lip curls. Just barely. Just enough. Irina Malik leans close enough for Nora to smell her perfume and whispers, "Enjoy this while it lasts, sweetheart. Fat girls don't survive in this world. They get eaten." Nora's hand tightens on the edge of the conference table, but she doesn't flinch. Nora does not flinch. She goes home, opens her laptop on the kitchen table next to the forensic accounting textbook, and begins building the case that will destroy Victor Hale and prove Irina Malik has been helping him. 3 days. That's all it takes. 72 hours of Nora Ashby hunched over a 7-year-old laptop with a cracked trackpad and a battery that dies every 40 minutes unless she keeps it plugged into the outlet behind the toaster. 72 hours of cold coffee, transaction logs, and that brass skeleton key hanging from the thin chain around her neck, swinging forward every time she leaned closer to the screen. Her honey blonde hair hadn't left its messy bun since Thursday morning. The freckles scattered across her rounded cheeks seemed darker against skin that hadn't seen sunlight in days. Her gray-blue eyes were bloodshot. She didn't care. Because what she found was beautiful. Ugly beautiful. The kind of beautiful that ends careers and starts prison sentences. Victor Hale had been siphoning money through a freight company registered in Joliet, Illinois, a shell called Lakeshore Consolidated Logistics. On paper, it moved industrial equipment. In reality, it moved nothing. It existed to generate invoices, and those invoices existed to justify payments from 3 of Roman Kasalov's distribution accounts. The total? $3.8 million, drained across 14 months in amounts just irregular enough to dodge automated flags, but just regular enough to show a pattern if you knew where to look. And Nora knew where to look. She'd spent 4 years reading textbooks about exactly this kind of theft. 4 years studying forensic trails while scrubbing marble countertops. 4 years invisible. 4 years preparing for a moment nobody believed she deserved. Here's the part that turned her stomach. The shell invoices? Somebody inside Roman's organization had to approve them. The approval chain showed a single authorization code. She cross-referenced Irina Malik's travel receipts, the corporate card records Roman's team had granted Nora access to, and found that every single invoice approval coincided with Irina's logged visits to the Joliet facility. Every one. 12 trips in 14 months, each one generating a fresh batch of phantom shipments that covered Victor's withdrawals. Irina wasn't just a rival whispering poison about fat girls getting eaten. She was complicit. She was the mechanism. Nora documented everything. 47 pages, supporting transaction records, timestamps, routing numbers, a timeline cross-referencing Irina's travel with Victor's deposits into a personal account at a bank in the Caymans. What Roman Kasalov's entire security apparatus couldn't untangle in 18 months, Nora Ashby assembled in 3 days on a kitchen table in a studio apartment that smelled like instant noodles and determination. She emailed the report to Roman's secure server at 11 p.m. on Wednesday. By Thursday, Victor Hale knew someone was digging. And Victor, being the specific breed of coward who punches down instead of running, didn't go after Roman. He went after the source. He asked around. He heard about the new financial strategist. He pulled a thread. He found out it was the Maid. The Maid. Thursday night, the Drake Hotel. Nora was walking through the service corridor on the 8th floor, heading toward the private elevator that connected to Roman's penthouse level. She wore the new blazer. Fitted, dark navy, tailored to her full, soft curves, the first piece of clothing she'd owned in years that didn't apologize for her body. The brass namepin was gone. The skeleton key still hung on its chain beneath her collar. 2 men stepped out of the service stairwell. The first one grabbed her arm, hard, fingers digging into the flesh above her elbow, yanking her sideways into the concrete stairwell. The second one blocked the exit door, shoulders filling the frame. The first man leaned down, close enough that she could see the yellow in his teeth. He said, "You're that fat pig who should have stayed scrubbing toilets." Real creative, Victor. Sent your brightest, clearly. Nora's back hit the concrete wall. Her breath went short. The new blazer crumpled against the rough surface. Her heavy thighs pressed together, her body instinctively trying to become smaller. That old reflex trained into her by years of being told she took up too much space. But here's the thing about Nora Ashby. She was terrified. Her pulse was hammering so loud she could hear it in her teeth, and she had still planned for this. Before entering the Drake that night, she'd activated a live GPS ping from her phone to Roman's security chief. The signal was broadcasting right now. She'd also moved her 47-page report to a dead-drop email account set to auto-send to 3 of Roman's overseas partners if she didn't check in by midnight. She told them. Both of Victor's men. Her voice shook, but only at the edges. The core held. "If I don't walk out of this stairwell in 90 seconds, your boss loses more than money. He loses all of it." They hesitated. You could see it, the exact moment when 2 men trained to intimidate realized they were standing in front of someone who'd already outmaneuvered them before they'd opened the door. Then Roman arrived, not running, walking, that military straight spine cutting through the service corridor like a blade through silk. His charcoal Tom Ford jacket unbuttoned, the Patek Philippe catching the fluorescent light on his left wrist. His pale gray eyes, almost silver, were absolutely empty. No rage, no heat, something worse, something past anger, living in a place where decisions have already been made. His security team cleared the stairwell in seconds. Roman looked at Nora pressed against the wall. He looked at the man whose fingers were still on her arm. The violence was clinical. One hand on the man's wrist, one precise rotation. The crack echoed off concrete like a dry branch snapping in a cathedral. The man screamed. The second was on the floor before he finished inhaling to speak, dropped by a strike so fast, Nora only registered the aftermath. Roman didn't raise his voice, didn't need to. "Nobody touches what is mine." 6 words, delivered to 2 broken men on a stairwell floor. That's all he gave them. Then he turned to Nora, stepped close enough that she could see the 3 faint freckles below his right eye near the cheekbone, close enough to smell oud wood and Macallan on the warmth of him. Her legs were shaking. She couldn't walk steadily. He saw it. Didn't ask permission. Both arms slid beneath her, one behind her back, one beneath her heavy thighs, and he lifted. All 230 pounds, her full weight against his chest, her broad hips settled in his arms, and he didn't strain, didn't shift his grip, didn't say one damn word about her size. He carried her out of the stairwell and into the penthouse elevator like she weighed exactly what she was supposed to weigh. In the elevator, her arms around his neck, her flushed, rounded cheek pressed against the wool of his collar, Roman Kasalov said into her hair, "You take up exactly the space you are meant to." Victor Hale's accounts are frozen, Irina Malik's access is revoked, and Nora Ashby, former maid, current untouchable, sits in Roman Kasalov's penthouse office wearing a custom Tom Ford blazer that fits her body like it was always supposed to, reviewing the final page of her 47-page report. The fallout takes 2 days to settle. Federal holds on 6 accounts, 3 warrants, 1 very public perp walk outside a Lakeshore Drive townhouse that makes page 4 of the Tribune. And when the dust clears, when the last encrypted file has been handed to Roman's attorneys and the last compromised access point has been cauterized from his network, the penthouse goes quiet. Just the 2 of them now. The study, floor-to-ceiling windows turning the Chicago skyline into a wall of cold light. Roman stands at the bar cart, his charcoal Tom Ford waistcoat unbuttoned, the sleeves of his white dress shirt rolled to the forearms, those prominent veins on the backs of his hands catching the light as he pours 2 glasses of Macallan 18. The amber liquid catches the glow. He doesn't rush it. He never rushes anything. He crosses the room and holds 1 glass out to her. Nora takes it. Her fingers don't tremble. She notices that. She notices it the way you notice the absence of a sound you've been hearing your whole life, a ringing that finally stopped. Roman lowers himself into the leather chair across from her, those pale gray eyes, almost silver, fixed on her face, the cluster of 3 faint freckles below his right eye, the Patek Philippe Nautilus catching a sliver of window light on his left wrist. He takes a slow sip, sets the glass down with a soft click. 3 days, he says. His voice is low, factual, like he's reading coordinates. You dismantled a conspiracy that nearly killed me, using a phone charger, a magnetic name card, and a 7-year-old laptop. She opens her mouth to deflect, to minimize, to do the thing she's been trained to do her entire life, shrink the accomplishment down until it fits inside the space people expect her to occupy. She stops. "You are mine." He says it the way he says everything, short, commanding, not a question, not a request, a geographic fact. The sun rises in the east. Lake Michigan is cold. You are mine. Nora looks at him, gray-blue eyes meeting pale silver, the scatter of freckles across her nose and cheekbones, the faint birthmark below her left ear, the size of a thumbprint. She holds his gaze. For the first time in 27 years, she doesn't look away. "I know," she says. 2 words. No stammer, no qualifier, no apology stitched to the end of it. He reaches for her, 1 hand. She takes it and he pulls her forward, pulls her onto his lap in the leather chair. All of her. Every pound. Her full, soft curves settling against him, her heavy thighs across his, the thick warmth of her waist under his hands as they span it. The chair doesn't creak. He doesn't shift. He holds her there like she weighs exactly what she's supposed to weigh. His mouth is near her ear. his breath warm against the birthmark on her neck. "Don't you dare make yourself smaller." She doesn't. 3 weeks later, the Ritz-Carlton Chicago ballroom, crystal chandeliers throwing fractured light across 200 place settings, a fundraiser for the city's financial crimes task force, $5,000 a plate. The kind of room where power doesn't announce itself because it doesn't have to. Nora enters on Roman's arm. She is wearing a custom midnight blue velvet gown, size 20, cut to her body with the precision of a love letter. Heavy thighs outlined in the fall of the fabric, soft waist cinched with a structured bodice, generous bust framed by a sweeping neckline, all of it visible, all of it deliberate. Diamond earrings catch the chandelier light. Her honey blonde hair is down for the first time, falling in soft waves past her shoulders, no messy bun, no hiding. And there, against the midnight velvet neckline, the brass skeleton key on its thin chain. Still there, always there, the only piece of the old uniform she kept. The room notices, the room can't help it. Working the event as part of the catering staff, because the universe has a sense of humor and it is vicious, is Mrs. Adler, the estate house manager. Same starched collar, same clipboard authority. She's carrying a tray of champagne flutes toward the far wall when she looks up and sees Nora walk in, on the arm of the man whose sheets she used to fold. Her face goes white, not metaphorically. The blood drains from her skin like someone pulled a plug. Nora sees her, holds her gaze for exactly 1 second, then looks away. No nod, no smirk, no confrontation. That silence hits harder than a scream. Victor Hale's arrest is public knowledge by now. A small item in the Tribune about a financial fraud case tied to a Lakeshore Drive property management firm. Frozen accounts totaling $4.2 million. A gold signet ring confiscated as evidence. No mention of Nora anywhere in the coverage. She prefers it that way. She is not famous. She is not visible. She is essential. There's a difference, and it's the only one that matters. Across the ballroom, standing near the bar in a fitted black blazer that used to mean authority and now just means she showed up, Irina Malik. Demoted, stripped of her operations title, reassigned to logistics oversight at the Gary port she once commanded. Her dark brown eyes find Nora across the room. Their gazes meet. Nora raises her glass of Macallan. Irina looks away first. The slim black Mont Blanc pen is nowhere in sight. Funny how you stop performing when you've got nothing left to perform. The final image is this: Roman and Nora at their table. Candlelight, the low murmur of 200 people who have no idea what she built, what she broke, what she saved. His hand rests on her thigh beneath the tablecloth. He leans over, his lips near her ear, the shallow cleft of his chin brushing her cheek. They're all staring. Nora takes a slow sip of her Macallan, sets the glass down. Her hands are steady. Her hands have not shaken since the night she kept folding those sheets. Let them. Nora Ashby was never the woman they saw. She was the woman they refused to see. She didn't change her body. She didn't shrink. She didn't carve herself down to fit the space they assigned her. She repositioned the entire world so it had to look at her, and when it finally did, it couldn't look away. Nora Ashby takes up space, and the world rearranges itself around her. If this story hit you somewhere real, subscribe, drop a like, and tell us in the comments about the person who underestimated you. We want to hear it.